My name is Catherine Quinn. I do social media for Maybe Happy Ending on Broadway. I am joined by the incredible Will Aronson and Hugh Park, the writers of Maybe Happy Ending. This is part of our Party Like It's 2064 fan event. We've had magical activations all day. They are going to continue for the next 8 hours. It's a very big day, but I'm super excited to sit down and chat. So Will and Hugh, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And now that we know what year you were born, we know how to address one another and we can actually have this conversation. It's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start with a basic that some Fireflies probably already know, but I'm curious. How did you all start writing together? How did this happen?
You want to start?
Sure. And you'll cut me off at some point. I mean, I don't mean that you normally do that. I mean, for my sake, you will help me by stopping me. This is what I meant.
We're already bickering with
each other. It's going well.
30 seconds.
And then I may not. Okay, anyway, I'll give it a shot. So I had just come back from Korea. That's how this story starts, where I had written music for a Korean musical. We won't get into why, I guess.
You should. I mean,
I should. Okay.
Yeah, everyone
that I had just graduated from school and was looking to work, as everyone is, right? You're trying to find a job, and there was a Korean producer who was making a musical, and they had the rights to a movie, and were assembling a team. And I guess they felt, well, we should get sort of some New York people on it. And there were a lot of Korean students studying musical theater in New York. They had assembled a team, and I was pitched as composer by the Korean writer who I had set one of their lyrics once. And they said, oh, I like this composer. The producer did not want to pay for an expensive composer. So I was the right age and the right price because I was a newbie. I ended up going to Korea to write that musical, not speaking Korean yet. I mean, we did music first. I started learning the alphabet. But once I got there, I was just blown away by the musical theater sort of industry. It wouldn't be the right word because I didn't think of culture, the musical theater culture, and just Korean culture. So at that point, I thought I better get my act together and start learning Korean now because there might be a second offer at some distant future. So I started learning Korean. I came back to New York. Hugh was studying visual art in New York.
Yeah, that was around the time I just had moved here. I studied visual arts at NYU, and we had some mutual friends at NYU. And before I moved here, I worked as a lyricist in the K-pop industry. I'm gonna call it an industry, not a culture, because it's gigantic.
And he wrote some hit songs. He's not going to tell you that. He's very modest. He likes to forget that part of his life.
It took several years, especially as a just like 20-year-old. Want to be a pop writer. I was writing a lot, not getting credit, for senior composers and lyricists. And then eventually I got a chance to publish a couple of songs on my name. So things are finally happening, but at the time I was already kind of over it. I don't know. I was young and
over K-pop or over what?
Over working as a lyricist, especially in the K-pop world at the time. It was not as glorious as it might sound. So I was like, before I get too old, I want to study abroad. I want to study visual arts because that was another passion that I always had as a kid. So I moved to New York and I met Will. So Will changed my life in the sense because my parents spent a lot of money for me to study visual arts.
Not in a good sense. I almost got touched. I was like, what a sweet... Oh, I see. He's blaming me.
He's complaining.
I misinterpreted.
So after spending zillions of dollars studying visual arts, here I am again, like writing lyrics again. But I'm enjoying it.
Can I say this is a tangent, but I think the visual art training plays a big role in our writing. That a lot of the shows we write, there are certain visual components that come from Hugh, like Hwabun, fireflies. There are these things, sort of little icons that to him express something about the core emotional ideas of a project. That for Hugh, the core ideas and emotions are not only expressed through words or music, but through sort of simple iconic imagery that I think comes from his visual sensibility, even though it's expressed actually as writing and as plot points. But Just want to throw that out there. I don't think it was wasted.
Thank you
My point is,
that.
tell your parents it wasn't wasted. I think it's part of it.
Now I'm feeling terrible. I feel like a bad person, but yeah, thanks for saying that.
You shouldn't. I mean, thank you for saying that too, because it's a question I wanted to ask. I mean, how does your background as a visual artist inform your work now? And a follow-up question to this that I really should know the answer to, so like nobody fire me, but like I know you two as the writers of Maybe Happy Ending. Is it divided composer, lyricist, and book writer? What does that division of labor look like between you two?
It was very complicated. On this show, it was a big mess.
Right. It was no, you can explain.
Well, I'll try. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
So this was our second show. When I dragged him into musical theater, it was for another film to stage adaptation in Korea. I mean, they do those a lot there as well, just as they do here. Because we had that first show together, we now were able to get a commission from a nonprofit to write an original show. And Hugh had several ideas. One, had a cast of thousands, and one was a small show for just a few actors. So we decided we'll start with that one. And when we started working on this, because it was an original, the first thing we did was write, we write the book together in English. We don't just write it as a book, though. There's sort of this iterative process, but let's just go really broad here. We write the book together in English. Based on our ideas about what the show is, I write the music first, based on sort of how we thought we wanted the show to go. Then Hugh wrote Korean lyrics to the music. So at this point, what we have is an English rough draft, a series of Korean language songs. And then Hugh, polished and translated the English script that we had written into Korean. And then we have a complete Korean. Then it was produced in Korea. Then coming back to America, we now had the rough English draft that had to be sort of updated based on the Korean production, a series of Korean language songs that then we had to translate into English. Did I get it right?
Yeah, but it might sound a lot more complicated than it actually is. I feel like, especially for the process of writing Maybe Happy Ending, which was like 10 years ago, because we were still sort of like new to this, which is writing shows together. Everything kind of formed themselves kind of organically.
Yeah.
When he said, "Oh, I wrote the music first," like it's not like entire number
That's right.
that he wrote together. We just like toss back and forth.
Here's a melody of this song, and then you'll say, okay, well that's that part of it, but what's the next part?
Right. What about this melody for the word within my room? Then I would get inspired by that, and then like write more lyrics, and then like toss it back to him. Right. So things were more like back and forth and organic, I would say. Yeah. I mean, at least for us, that's how we worked.
Can you speak a bit about the reception in Korea versus in the States? Has it been different? How much has the show evolved since Korea?
Well, there's the vocal response is the first thing. I think that's not probably what you're asking, but that's the first thing that comes to
mind. I'm curious.
It's a story that we love talking about because it was very monumental moment for us, but also it might sound like, what's the word? Pervasive? Is that a word?
Yeah.
Am I making it up?
Well, that is the word, but I don't know if it's the word you want. I mean, what is it? Self-congratulatory? No, or perverse.
Yeah, perverse. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the Korean reception. I was going to meant the Atlanta one.
Oh, I was going to talk about the Korean.
You can go for it. Sure. Go for it.
So it was during our very first open to public performance during the tryout production of Maybe Happy Ending in Korea. So it was literally the first night that we met our first group of audience.
Right. Fall 2015.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And it was at a very small, like black box theater, belonged to that nonprofit organization that commissioned us to write this show. So it was about like 100 people. We were sitting on the balcony, and because we are so close to the audience, and we are so nervous introducing this new story to the world. And there was only one blackout toward the end. It was after Oliver and Claire decide to erase their memories. Oh my God, spoiler alert. And then when there's a short blackout, because Korean audience tend to be very courteous and polite toward each other, they hate making like noise,
just like Americans.
Oh, sorry, like they're a little more,
No, I think that was sarcasm.
Sensitive. Oh, okay. Koreans are a little more sensitive about it in a good way, healthy way, I think. Anyway, so they tend to, during blackout, they tend to sort of like readjust their, themselves a little bit. That's what they do. So when there's this first blackout toward the end, in a very emotional moment, someone in the audience, like very loudly, like sob. There was a sound.
It was a very like a wail. And I think this is the part that sounds perverse, that we were so nervous. Obviously, when we wrote the show, we're like crying writing it, but this often happens, right? To you, it's so emotional. You write the song that it's like you're putting your heart on the line. Then you play for people and they're like, oh, that was nice. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed that it was so emotional to me and not to you. Well, so anyway, we're sitting here nervous. I mean, this is already past 100 minutes into the show. We've heard not a peep from the audience. We don't know if they hate what's going on. Then there's a blackout and this person wails, just like sobs. And our response, of course, was like, it's working. Like we were, that's the perverse part.
I remember that creep, in the darkness, in the very short moment, we both were like holding each other. Oh my God, it's working. And then that felt very stupid, but at the same time, like I was so thrilled that someone was, like resonating with the story.
Right, that they felt about it the way we did, because that's like your dream as a writer, is that the passion you're putting into it, that someone is going to connect with it and feel like it's their story or they can relate to it. And so we were very relieved, but that was really the only kind of, there were not audible reactions in the show. So now fast forward, this is a long story, fast forward to 2020, our first American performance. First time we're doing it in front of an audience in America. And I think there were high school students there that night as part of a program at the Alliance. In any case, they got to the touch sequence. More spoilers. In any case, there's a big moment in the touch sequence, right? At the climax of it. And the audience erupted into cheers. This had never happened. It was so disorienting. We didn't know what was going on. And we're also obviously very happy, but it was a totally different response. Much more vocal, and I mean, applause would never have occurred to us.
That was really amazing.
Yeah, so those really stuck in our minds as like these incredible moments.
That's amazing.
That was a difference. I guess to get back, that was your question of the different responses. I mean, there's sort of,
I mean, I hear the sniffles and sobs here too, for sure. It's definitely still happening here. I don't know about Wales. Okay. Can you speak a little? I'm just curious. This show feels pretty unique, I think, compared to a lot of what we see on Broadway. And, you're talking about how vibrant and incredible the musical theater scene and culture is in Korea. And you were talking about a lot of film to stage adaptations. Is it similar in terms of what is popular in Korea versus what's on Broadway? And when maybe Happy Ending premiered, was it similarly sort of like, that's different? Was that a similar response?
I feel like my answer would be yes and no. Like there are a lot of big popular Western shows performing in Korea, like Korean productions of, The Phantom, or Kinkabus, or you just name it. Like, everything that's successful would go there anyway. And they would do replica productions. So, they like, in that sense, they like the same shows that we like here.
And these big European style shows, even if they're Korean originals, right? Like those kind of big, I don't know what the term for those kind of musicals are, but those really big, big stage,
like based on Western classic novels and things like that, then they naturally would have to create this like very elaborate, beautiful sets and things like that.
There's a spectacle in that sense.
Right. But at the same time, there are a lot of, Korean musical culture is amazing, considering how short the history is. People are very enthusiastic. People are very passionate about like writing original musicals, like set in every era, set in like Chosun Emperor or something. Also like 1960s, 70s, 80s. I think that's very different than the type of shows that we get to see here. Yeah. So yes and no.
Yeah, but wasn't it also true that Maybe Happy Ending, in being so, I mean, minimal is one word for it. I don't know that that's the right word, but focusing on just these characters' relationship over the course of this journey using the live strings, I felt that in that sense it was a bit different stylistically than what a lot of the other original shows were doing at that time, which was sort of your vision for it, I think. Is that fair to say? I guess I'm praising you, so you can't say that. You don't want to be seen, but yes, Hugh did want to try something that was a little different. I mean, again, we had the strings are on stage in the Korean production through the whole show.
Oh, so wow.
I don't want to spoil the American thing, which has a really special staging moment.
Reveal, yes.
Reveal. In Korea, they're actually like other helper bots. They're just in their own little helper bot apartments on stage throughout the length of the show.
Wow.
So, but that was one of Hugh's concepts from the beginning, was to have this live acoustic sound that was not necessarily the dominant sound at the time, and especially to contrast the futuristic setting. So it was a unique case where, because you wanted to show that this was something different, from the first reading, we had those strings. I'd never worked like that. I'm used to, you do a reading with a piano first, but Hugh said, to convey what this is, our first reading in Korea will have the string quartet like as part of it. And that maintained, and they were on the stage, and they sing in the Korean production. They're like they're the ones singing backup in the Korean production. And another little tidbit, cool. I'm really going off script here, but
no, it's great.
In terms of the band, we saw this question in the Reddit list was about Claire's owners. And this sort of ties in with this thing about having the band on stage. Because the band was on stage, we use them for other things in Korea. For example, representing Claire's former owners. So instead of the video and the really specific scenes that we have in America, the cellist and the violin one are representing her owners, and they play like a duet during that number. So that's sort of a little tidbit. I'm sort of jumping ahead to something that someone asked in the chat, but yes, anyway.
No, I love that. Honestly, I should probably get to some of our questions here. So
going rogue.
No, I think it's great. At what point did Broadway enter the conversation? Or even an American production?
That was 2016.
Yeah, very early on. So we were lucky to be, financially backed up by the Korean nonprofit. They were sort of like new at the time too. So they were, trying different things. So when they commissioned us to write Maybe Happy Ending, because of, who we are as writers, as a team, like bicultural and based in both Seoul and New York, the producer at the nonprofit asked me, would you guys want to do a reading in New York too? So we're like, yeah, sure. But we were not really like aiming at, recruiting a Broadway producer or something like that. We're like, well, let's do it. They said they can get us money for that. So we did it. We did two readings, and for the second reading, we invited some producers, including Jeffrey Richards, who ended up becoming one of the lead producers of the Broadway production. So right after the reading presentation, the Korean producer who flew in from Seoul took everyone out for drinks. That's like Korean culture. Producers provide meals and, like after party and things like that. So we were at a pub near the studio. We did the reading. So within like 30 minutes, we got a phone call from our agent at the time. Like, Jeffrey wants to bring the show to Broadway. We were like excuse me? Like what? And then the funny thing was, we were supposed to fly out to Seoul right after that for the first, was it the first production of this show?
Yes, the first commercial production.
Yeah,
this was 2016. So.
Yeah, so we're like, oh my God, that's great. Thank you so much, but we have to go. Like that's what happened.
Like you want to come in for a meeting, and we're like, we're heading to the airport. This keeps happening to us. Right. We left the morning after it opened on Broadway. We had the opening night party. The next morning, we were on the plane. We're like, see ya.
Yeah. So this legendary Broadway producer was like, I want to bring your show. Even though you're not known at all, you wrote this tiny show, but I want to bring this show to Broadway. We were like, let's talk in three months, because we are going to Seoul. So yeah, that's what happened. So yeah, he got on board very early on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. A question in the chat is also wondering about composing lyrics in two languages, Korean and English, and how it impacts the process of writing and collaborating.
Well, Will gets in charge of English lyrics anyway, because even though I could write dialogue and scenes in English with Will, writing lyrics is just a different animal. So based on my Korean lyrics, like he would really like polish it a lot. So I think because in that sense, he writes both lyrics and music. It becomes very organic process again.
Yeah, and right. Well, so we were theorizing recently on the difference between Korean and English lyrics because we get asked this, and for a lot of our work, I mean, it's organic. We're not theorizing about it while we're doing it, but after the fact, we can make up our little theories. So people have said, well, the Korean lyrics and English lyrics are actually quite different.
I was curious.
First lines are always identical because in the translation process, it's like, let's write the same lyric. It works great in Korean. You do the first line, but now rhyming comes into it. And rhyming is structurally very important. There's one song in Maybe Happy Ending where we don't rhyme. We decided we were going to just like, we're gonna go rogue here and try to do something very artsy. And there is one song in the show. I wonder if people know which one. I'm sure if you
leave it in the comments.
Yeah, right. There's one song where we said, they're having this moment that's supposed to be them working something out. We actually won't have them rhyme and see how that works. And I thought one day we'd have to stick rhymes in and we didn't. But anyway, the default that our ear expects and I think gives the lyrics shape in English is rhyming. Korea doesn't use rhyming like that. You can sort of like if you want to, but it's not at all something your ear expects. And actually there's a risk of it sounding artificial if you put a lot of rhyming in. Right. Well, let me try to sum up the general idea of this theory is that because Korean lyrics don't depend on rhyming, they need to have something else that makes them a lyric, which is like metaphor, poetic language, really like great insights that kind of make you go, oh, I never thought of that. Whereas in English, because it's already artificial, because you have rhymes in it, like no one talks like that then if it's also poetic and metaphorical, now you're just like so far from a speech, it's all frou-frou, right? So the English lyrics tend to have a lot more like detail, like specific words like socks and suitcase and objects. And, you like to point out the line, like, how much shit did you pack? And he's like, in Korea, like, no. Because if you think about it, without the rhymes grounding it in lyricness, if you just said those things, it would just be like dialogue put to music. So we think that's probably why there is this difference in the two, I mean, I'm broadening, but now correct me. What is that?
No, I agree. I mean, also writing is changing, not our writing. I mean, writing in general. Also, the musical theater culture in Korea it's a baby. It's only like 20-year-old. So, I mean, like, since it got really like commercialized and then like big productions and things like that, I think it's been like about 20 years since the first replica production of The Phantom in Korea, which was monumental at the time. So anyway, yes, rhyming wasn't the biggest virtue of lyric writing in Korea, but now it's becoming more prominent. I feel that, I sense that also in the pop culture too, in Korean pop culture too. I think it's because there's a lot of influences they are taking from the Western pop music too. So now a lot more people are like trying to or getting into rhyming and things like that in Korean too. So what I'm saying is, when I started writing lyrics, I felt like rhyming wasn't number one thing to consider. There were a lot of other conventions that I had to prioritize, but now it's becoming a little different. So I don't know, maybe in the future for our next show, I might focus on rhyming in Korean too. Who knows? But other than that, what Will explained, I think that's pretty much accurate.
That's cool that it keeps evolving. Yeah. So that's, trends change and styles evolve.
I know. I love that, Will, you were just like, oh, our next show is going to rhyme. Cool. Good to know. Love that.
So expect that the English and Korean lyrics might be more similar. We'll see.
I love that. Well, is there a particular song that you feel the intent evolved the most between the Korean and English versions?
My first response to that is that I don't know. to me, the intentions are kind of the same, but the way those intentions are expressed becomes different. We go, here's the dramatic action of the song. Here's how it fits into the story. Here's where the characters are at the end of it. Here's the tone of it. But then how they get there is like different. Does that sound right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And like, yeah, I mean, you always have cited that thing about how much shit did you pack being like a funny thing that like you would just not like in no world would you be putting that in the Korean lyric, but I don't, as maybe not the best example. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
We have a fan question. What's your favorite line or song that you loved in the show but got cut in the process?
Well, there's that little reprise that got cut.
First of all, when we start to write the show, we are barely 30-year-old, and now we are in our 40s. It's hard to remember everything.
I was like, why are you telling us this? Okay, great.
I don't even remember what got cut, what made, the final version. I mean,
that's good. You're not precious. You're not.
Bible writers. We are like, fine. Like if someone suggests, like, can we cut that? I'm like, what else do you want to cut?
Exactly, because I think this may be a thing. Once you've seen your work in front of an audience, I think your thinking on this changes because nobody wants to bore people. Like you want people to understand what's happening. You want them to be connecting to it. And if one of our collaborators who we know has the same goal for the show, this can be a problem if you're meeting new collaborators who maybe you don't know yet if you're going the same direction. Once you have collaborators where we're like, oh, you see the show the same way we do, but you feel like this is unnecessary. Well, great. Let's get rid of it. Like if the audience is there, let's move ahead. Let's try to, So we're not precious.
He's very vicious about, Hugh, let's cut the line. Let's cut the lyric. I'm like, okay. I just got to remember.
Music. And I cut a lot of music.
Yeah, he's very willing to trim down everything, which is not easy, because so during the process, it was like during the previous actually, we were this
Korea or America?
Here. Am I allowed to say that? We're this close to cut one of the very important numbers. Luckily we saved it, but we were like this close. During the previous, what I learned from people, we considered cutting that song entirely.
Partially because the thing now that this is out there, oh God, now it's out there. Can you edit this? But
yes, but there are people watching it currently.
Right. Well, then we better be really specific because part of why this was obviously hard was that we were like blown away by the performance of the song. But the issue was in Korea, this song, as we mentioned actually a second ago, was accompanied by the duet between the cellist and violinist. So you were watching, it's almost like a dance piece. Like they're playing, she's singing it in a way that gave it some variety from the fact that she has a solo like 2 songs earlier, right? How to Be Not Alone. So there was that. And in Korea, there was not a scene with her owners. It was only represented visually. So in America, we were like, we have this gigantic new scene. Has the song run its course? Is it no longer necessary? Because this can happen. Like there can be beloved songs. This has happened in all of our shows where we go, we love this song. It's slowing us down. It's repetitive. We'll use it on an album. We'll put it on the album, but we won't do it in the show. And there are many musicals that have done that, have put a song on the album, but cut it. So that's why we were at the last minute. Well, maybe the scene does enough work, but it was so late in previews that Michael and we all came to the conclusion of, we don't know what the consequences are going to be. And there was no time to take it out and put it back in.
It's very scary.
And if you take it out, suddenly you're like, well, yes, it made the show a little longer. Maybe there's a dip, but you're now losing the overall arc of like this feeling to that feeling to this feeling. And, the idea would have been to replace it with a scene, have all the same beats, but not have the full song. But anyway, we didn't pull that trigger. And we're, of course, happy that it, also we love how Shell performs it so incredibly that we were amazing. Like, when she performed that in the rehearsal room the first time, we were just so like bored by it. So then to get to that point of like, anyway, so we were very relieved that we stepped away from that precipice.
So if there's anyone who's watching this, who wants to write musicals, I feel like writing is difficult itself, but throughout this whole process, that was one of the most like impactful moment, because we were this close to cut the number entirely, not knowing whether it's gonna work better or not, and no one could give us the answer, right? It's our decision. And when we had no opportunity to like bring it back into the show, like how could you make that decision? Right. It's very difficult. And of course we would like to get everyone else's input, their feedback or their thoughts, but at the end of the day it's your decision as a writer. So I feel like that's one of the most difficult things as being a writer.
Yeah, I will say one thing that we were really lucky. This kind of ties back to something we said earlier. On this show, we were really grateful that the entire creative team, that's the directors, designers, and the actors, were all telling the same story, which means then you really feel safe to be having questions, like get everyone's input. Everyone is in the room discussing it. We were in rehearsal every day, and you're there. It's a joy, and it makes the piece better, right? There are other cases where you go, everyone has a slightly different story they want to tell. So now it's tricky. Well, they're pulling it this way, we're pulling it that way. But this was a case where everyone was really pulling in the same direction, which was like so wonderful. I mean, really a dream company.
Previews are a terrifying time. I just feel like you're telling us it's just so high stakes and such a short period of time to test in front of audiences and have to change seismic things, like for instance, giant set pieces that might evolve over the course of a day and a half, and then you're back and people are like, where did that balcony go?
Yeah, I was gonna say, were you referring to the second floor?
Yeah, because I saw final dress, and then I came back and I was like, well, where'd it go?
No idea. But the amount, when they said there, I was like, how?
Because how is that gonna happen?
Like the underscore was timed to it. Like everything was built around this thing, and then it was like
it was miraculous.
The set people are gonna come in overnight. They're going to Michael and Dane and everyone had to reconceive it overnight. I mean, it was like
blows my mind. And you're so tired at that point in the process. Like how that went through seamlessly and is beyond me. It's just incredible.
Behind Michael, Dane, and Justin to see how they work, because I will say it's amazing. They've now worked so often together that they have this, but like to see them problem solve in real time.
It's insane,
because maybe there's some brilliant thing they had come up with, like but it's just not working. Now, maybe if you had unlimited time and money, you could get it to work. Well, we'll wait 2 days. Okay, this will take 2 days to make work, but you don't have date. You have 20 minutes. You have to on the spot be like, I'm making the call. It's out. And that's even before you get to previews, just things in tech where they're trying something, and to watch them do that, where they're letting go of stuff or then coming up with a brand new idea on the spot, where one of them goes, well, couldn't it be this? Couldn't it be that? And just moving forward and not taking time to be like, no, but I spent years coming up with that and it was perfect and my heart is broken. They just like, okay, what do we do? Let's get this done.
Yeah,
they're
amazing together because they trust each other entirely.
Yes,
and they've worked with us so many times. They know each other's so well. So I feel like it's really good to have a work partner who knows you so well. You know me a little too well, I feel like.
I thought a compliment was coming.
Sorry.
He was poised. He was ready.
And that's why
I could feel this like
energy.
Yeah, and like an energy, and I just forgot what I was going to say, but
oh no, sorry.
No, but it was amazing.
They worked together beautifully.
Yeah, it was amazing to witness the magic that they were creating. So I hope like one day, someday in the future, when we become better writers, like younger writers, will watch us and then like, oh, I want writing partner like Will. Like, I hope people will realize that theater making is really about being collaborative. Even as a writer, writing, people might think that it's just like you and and your laptop, but it's really not that. It's really about communicating with each other and then trusting each other. That's really the major part of this job.
Yeah, I think it comes through so much in your work. I mean, that was the thing I was so struck by the first time I saw the show, just totally as a fan. I was like, I don't know that I've ever, I mean, in recent memory, I haven't seen something where it was so clear that everyone was on the same page. Like writing worked perfectly with the most beautifully timed set, which worked perfectly with the orchestration, which it was just like, and the light, I mean, it was just everything was so cohesive, which I think speaks to all of you as collaborators. It's just been, it's an amazing thing to watch. Yeah. Also, have to highlight, we have our standbys here. Standbys. Well, someone asked about the movie. What is the deal with the maybe have? No, do we not talk about this?
You're allowed to talk about it, but what you mean the Korean movie?
There's
right?
a Korean movie got produced. We were not part of it. We are not involved in it. They worked with different writers. It was a mutual conversation. We said we don't want to get involved in your vision because it's kind of different than our original vision. They added some backstories to the characters, which were not our ideas. So we respected the producer's vision. So yeah, like go ahead, make the movie, but it's slightly different than what we came up with. So this is your word. And we haven't even seen the movie yet.
We haven't seen the movie. It's a different composer and writers.
I don't think it has been
wild.
Yeah, so it does I believe it uses songs from the show in some way, but it does have different writers and a different composer. So it's kind of a long story, but we haven't seen the film. We weren't involved in it.
Fascinating. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Broadway, everyone was on the same page and telling the same story, and it's wonderful.
We love that. I think that's great. Someone guessed The Rainy Day We Met for the non-rhyming song. Is that the one?
No, that is the song that has socks in it, though. Because I think I cited socks. That you found the socks, but the non-rhyming song is a different song.
Someone says "Rest in peace" to Show Peephole.
Oh, we loved that scene. Oh my God, I know that was hard to. But again, we were like, too many people were like, "Show people," like there's no people like show people.
Oh.
So people were like, "Show people," and we're like, "No, show peephole," and and for various reasons, it had to go. We were very sad to see that go in previews. We love that scene. Playing No One's Home. I don't even know if you know. People aren't going to know.
I don't.
Because it was.
I don't know what this is.
Oliver, there used to be this concept in the script where whenever someone shows up at the door, there's some voice command, show peephole, and the person's face shows up on the door like a giant. So they had Claire's face would show up looking. And because he sees that she's outside, he tries to have the AI tell her that no one's home and is like, say no one's home. But the AI assistant keeps getting confused and says like searching for no one's home on streaming music, and whatever. And he's trying to shut it up.
Which is based on my real life experience because my Alexa wouldn't understand my Korean accent. So we misunderstand each other a lot. It used to be worse. So yeah, that line was based on.
Yeah, there was basically the whole scene of Oliver's AI unit not understanding him. But we had
that's amazing.
It was delaying the beginning of the show, but we were sad. We're ruthless.
Yeah, you have to be, especially with a 100-minute musical. How is Ghost Bakery going?
Oh wow, people
wow.
It's
you've got mega fans.
Well, it's nearing the end. It's Korea's limited run, so it's to the end of this month.
Yeah, so it's closing end of next weekend. So we are very sad that we're not going to be there, of course, because it's 14-hour flight. But everyone's very happy who's in the show. We are working on some promotional videos that we would like to release before the closing. Yeah. What else?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
We hope, like in the future, we will get to, present that work to American audience too, if that's possible.
Love that. That'd be amazing. I just lost it. Well, lots of people are asking about the piano vocal score, which I trust we cannot talk about just yet. So everyone should. Are we?
No secret. Well, wait. Yeah. Do you know something we don't?
No, but I just feel like typically in these things, it's like there's an announcement and we do graphics for it and all the things. I don't think we've had any of that yet.
I'll just say we are committed to we want that to happen. It's not imminent. It's not like we haven't and it's about to come out, unfortunately. But we're working on making that happen, and I believe it definitely will happen.
Yeah, we're not very like marketing savvy type of writers.
I think you're doing great.
So I'm like, there's no secret. Yeah, we are having a conversation. We think it's gonna happen. So
Catherine's like trying to help us, like trying to protect us. You're like, I'm literally running interference for you, and you're ruining it.
No, it's I am struggling. No one needs to know this, but I'm struggling internally because Catherine, the fan, is like, tell me everything. But then Catherine, who's on the actual marketing team for Maybe Happy Ending, is like, control yourself. So I'm at war with myself right now, essentially. Okay, beautiful. What if it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's like I just wanted to mention that Will is not even on Instagram. It's like not anti.
Oh.
And I am on Instagram, but I get scared by it. Like I get really shy on social media. This is my first time ever, probably like doing live streaming, right?
Thank you.
So we don't know how many people are watching this. We don't know what people are commenting. I'm just like talking to you, so it's
safe. No one's here.
As a person, I'm like, okay, let's talk about everything. But at the same time, Hugh, this is probably like marketing your show. You have to control yourself. I'm having this like a weird, anyway.
Yes, and yeah, that's a broader conversation about marketing. It's for the fans is the number one thing. Do you know what I mean? But also ultimately that's marketing. So, it depends on how cynical you want to be about all of this. Right. I know. Okay, someone asked, what, if anything, can we read into the fact that James is the only human Korean character with a non-Korean name? Was that a deliberate choice?
Yes, because James is obsessed with, 1940s, 50s, the great American songbook, songs, also American mid-century culture. So I think it makes sense for someone like him to name himself something like James, like classic English name. And also it's so like a reflection on like my identity too, although Hugh is a Korean name, Chun Hugh is the full Korean name, but I go by Hugh, which sounds like an English name to Korean people. And there are a lot of actually Korean folks we got to work with who go by English names. So I was thinking that, it kind of shows that the bicultural identity of me as a writer, also the word that I'm trying to depict. So that was an idea. I feel like I'm not explaining it very well.
No, that's great. Yes, yeah. I mean, we say, because like you said, he has that obsession with that culture. I think the point that he's the only one, I think, is also meaningful because we wanted James to be a little bit of, well, like Oliver, we imagined he's someone who kind of was into his own little world. He probably had also a world within his room where he tends his plants. And, I think in the flashback, you see him saying like, oh, it's a perfect day to look out the window. So that maybe part of why maybe his marriage didn't work out was well, but was maybe a little in his own world. And we see that the son, of course, is using a Korean name. Now, James may have given both to him, had a nickname for him or not, but Junsaw is committed to using Junsaw, possibly to distinguish himself from his dad. And, these are all our little backstory things that you can have a different story, but that's sort of our reason for that.
I love that though. What are your musical inspirations? Or who, I suppose, or both?
When we were becoming friends, we got close, being such nerds about Ben Folds. We both love Ben Folds.
Me too, kindred spirits.
Ben Folds and Y Music.
Yeah,
we saw that concert together.
Yeah, so he was one of the singer-songwriters we talked about a lot. Who else?
That was together. I mean, John Bryan,
yeah.
We think that's his name. The film composer. Not sure. Amazing. I never met him, but did things like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I Heart Huckabees.
He also produced one of the last Mac Miller albums. He's a very eclectic musician, artist himself. Which I really love. What else?
Have we invited Ben Folds to see the show?
Is that possible?
You know?
Certainly.
I don't think this show is a reflection of our love of Ben Folds. I mean, we love Ben Folds, but there weren't that many opportunities to use that kind of, really
oral aesthetic. Yeah.
Right. So, but we love him. I mean,
we both love Gabriel Kahane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Who else?
Totally. I mean, the list could we could talk an hour about our influences, frankly.
Right.
I love that. And I think it's interesting too that so many of them, like, you're not listing off necessarily musical theater greats. It's like very inspired by film scores, pop music, and that tracks, I love it. I think it's gorgeous.
That's true. And we do also study music. I mean, we like listening to them and study musicals, but you're right. A lot of our influences are from outside the theater. Which,
if you can recall, in the last, 10 years of this musical, now that you're in your 40s, which song took the least amount of time to write, and which one took the longest amount of time to write or finish?
Fastest, I know you know.
The fastest for me was this song, 그럼에도 불구하고, that got cut in the English American version. I wrote the lyrics within like 10 minutes. It was one of those classical writers.
You were in the zone.
Yeah. Will and I would talk about each song moment and what the lyrics should be like beforehand a lot. So I knew what I was supposed to write anyway. But anyway, the song I just sat down and then wrote in like 10 minutes, and I didn't even have to revise them much. And then that is probably one of Korean audience's favorite songs in the show. So I was very happy and inspired by this experience.
And it's not in the American.
I was gonna say, is it in the recording?
It's
Korean recording?
Sure,
okay.
Sure. But the American show is 10 minutes shorter than the Korean show. So the most of the changes are in the last section, where the section where Claire, spoilers? Can I?
Spoilers, everyone.
Spoilers!
Ahead, like 10 seconds.
Where Claire is breaking down, that sequence is much longer in the Korean version. That basically they try to stay together and deal with it, but Oliver is not able to hide how upset he is by it, which is very painful for Claire. Seeing this guy who had been so happy, I like my plant, and now he's so upset at all the time, and she can't bear that she's doing this to him. So she's the one who's we have to break up, because it's watching like this, and he's no, I can hide it, but he can't hide it. But to get there is an extra 10 minutes in the Korean production. And that's where that song falls. And that, again, there was a feeling that a one act on Broadway, that making it close to 2 hours, which it is in Korea, was just too much given the size of our bladders. I can relate, no intermission is tricky, but yeah, so it's 10 minutes shorter, and that song went. And some of the other changes are relating to that. The tightening up. Almost all the changes related to trying to tighten the show. Yeah. That
huge.
Was
go ahead.
Another example of, we were very, open to just letting anything go for this, version. We were not being very precious about all the previous drafts. We were that Korean fans' favorite, let's cut it.
That's amazing.
And to be fair,
that's amazing.
Cut that before even the first English reading. That was not for Broadway. That was cut in 2016.
Yeah, it was our.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So that was very, very early on. We knew it had to be tighter.
So sorry, Korean, fans of the show. 죄송합니다. 다음번에 넣을게요. 어쩌면. 네. Sorry, I have to make this announcement in Korean.
No, listen. Thank you, and it's beautiful. I have a huge spoilery question. So truly, if fans have not seen the show, please scrub ahead 60 seconds tops, probably 30. There's a climactic thing that happens at the end of the show. There's a choice. Does Claire do the thing?
Well,
what do you think? Because I know it's open to interpretation. So what are your feelings?
So should we do the whole history of this scene? Because briefly, in our
you said briefly.
I know, because we have a tendency, as you can see, to go on and on. So oh my God, we can't see the chat because someone just wrote.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Okay,
it's in there.
We could be seeing the chat.
You could be seeing the chat.
Okay, maybe we should open that up. Anyway, in our very first draft that was just internal, we didn't even show it to anyone. It didn't even make it to the first reading. We actually had both of them talk to Hwabun at the end. That you thought the show, you know, did it, and then at the end of the scene, she turns around and does the same thing. So they both didn't erase. But we felt that this was like kind of tying things up in a bow. It almost became like, you know, so, and then we thought, well, wait a minute. She's a more advanced model. She should, for all intents and purposes, seem to have erased. Because if we write it as if she totally erased, there's still no way to know because she's more advanced. She could act if she wanted to. So the script that we went into our first reading in Korea already had it that it's confirmed that Oliver did not erase. Claire seems to have erased. Now, the way we do it in Korea is that the actresses, by the way they perform it, the audience can often tell, like, wait, she looked over where she told him to put Hwabun. That shows that she remembers the conversation. Like, look where she looked. Okay, no, tonight she definitely did erase. And so the actresses really are very subtly. They can't like suddenly go to, but with little just looks and very subtle motions, they change the feeling of whether Claire erased or not.
Wow.
In America, we left that to the actors and directors. So they'll probably have, I think you have to ask Shell if she erased, because I don't, oh my God.
She will not tell me.
Because I think only, honestly, my feeling,
Michael will tell me what he thinks, but Shell won't tell me what
and
she
only
thinks.
she knows. She's
Which is kind of amazing.
She's the one who's embodying it every night. It's whatever is in her head. So we don't know unless she tells us.
Hugh, do you agree? It's like it's totally just up to.
Yeah. But we made it clear, you know, with all the actresses we've worked with, like, but you should look like on the surface. You should look like you erase your memory.
Yes.
You know, you're a better liar. You're a better actor in the sense. The character.
And then the truth is up to them.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of saying that in a talk back in Korea, where the actors playing Oliver and Claire were next to me. I said, well, since Claire's a better actor, and I said, no, I mean the character. That didn't go well.
Yeah, that's
my Korean wasn't great at the time. I think anyway.
No, I'm sure they forgive you. Someone asks, are there more lyrics to Why Love? And would you be willing to publish them? If so, it's such a great song, but it stops way too soon.
That's a great question. There are a lot of songs, especially the jazz numbers, where we wrote longer intros. Like there might be like a verse intro and then you get to the chorus, and we often strip them out or shorten them a lot. But I don't remember if Why Love was one of those. I know Jenny had a longer intro, like a more of a verse, a free verse intro, but I don't know about Why Love. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we always kept the song kind of, you know, compact, because it's kind of like a prologue in a way. You know, it's like a prologue, not really the opening song. So we want it to be like as tight as possible. But maybe in the future for like a single version, we would stretch it out. Yeah,
it's a good idea.
Little bit, so you know we can get more time to really be immersed by the song.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Maybe we should do a single version.
Okay, let's do it. Let's get on it.
I'm game. Do you think Oliver and Claire are actually conscious?
Well, for us, yes. I mean, that's a really big philosophical question. I think to write them as dramatic characters, for us, yes, because they also are us. You know, we're also writing about how we live. So since we're conscious, I think we were interested in writing about characters who are, but this is, in a way, I'm dodging the question of like, if they were genuinely created as AI, would they count it? But to us, they're I mean, for me, they are.
Yeah, for me too.
They're people for us, you know? So yeah, to us.
Is there any significance of Claire's password? Certainly there is. Oliver's has meaning being James's favorite album, but what about Claire?
That's May 14th, and LSH is, you know, Suhan's initial, Lee Suhan. So that's the day she met Suhan for the first time.
Love. Oh, someone just said, ooh, we're gonna get cut songs on the album. Wow. We've promised something that may or may not actually happen.
No. There are no cuts. There is. Well, should we tease that there is more on the album than is listed in the program? I can't say that. I don't know, Catherine. You need to prep us.
It's been said now, Will. The tease has happened.
Wait, no. This
has occurred. No, I think it's great. I think it's
great.
You can leave it. Yes, but there are people watching it right now. But I think it's great. We're learning. We're learning.
Now? What is reality?
What is? Are we conscious right now? I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna leave it vague at that, and we're just gonna let everyone get really excited.
We're trying to fit as much as we can, which is to say, there's a little bit more on the album than is in the program of listed songs, but not much. And there is no cut material on the album. There's material we almost cut, but then didn't. But yeah,
I have had an idea shared with, I think, various members of cast. We want to do a concert series in the Belasco apartment and film it, and not actually have people like attend it, but to film songs in there. Would that not be so amazing?
Amazing.
I haven't been.
I haven't been there either.
Yeah,
I haven't either. But
we got to get there.
We'll make friends with house manager and make it happen. It's gonna be great. Okay, let's see. She was plugged into the wall, so is there no reason for her to have to let's see if this makes sense to you.
I know what they're asking.
Oh, this is about erasure, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, now we're getting into real insider baseball, because there's Korea is different, but there's a similar thing that happens where Oliver gives her a note before she leaves. And then she comes back. And the question is, what was in the note and why does she come back? Because does she need to come back? Well, so yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much about it because this is so insider baseball-y, but I think you could look at it as if she comes back to his room, then by default, that means that she does remember the circumstance, because if she woke up and was, for example, plugged into the wall, but the thing is that isn't totally true, because she wasn't yet permanently plugged into the wall when the show ended. She does have the big thing on her, and we never get to see, did she take all that down? Like, will she have to repair her charger again? She's below 50%, but she's not at 0. You know, we don't show what that is, so I think it leaves room for you to imagine what she still has on her wall or doesn't. But she could be in this situation where her battery just lasts for like a few minutes at a time, and she immediately goes back over to his room. But I like the idea that it's a little clue that she didn't erase. But I think, again, we're all going to be looking for our own explanation, and I maintain only Shell knows. So
also,
I love that.
There are potentially other clues that could back up that theory that she didn't erase.
That she says the same number of...
Don't say. I mean, there
Never mind.
There are very subtle
Never
things.
mind.
If you watch the show more than once, then you might get it, but we don't want to publicly announce it. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this one line that we weren't sure if it's too. But again, I feel it can still be ambiguous. Even that line, I don't think is a guarantee that she did or didn't.
Yeah,
erase.
but I met some audience members in Korea, like, came to me after the show, like, she said blah blah blah. That means she didn't erase the memory. Her memory is like, I was like, you could be right.
Interpret it that way.
Don't answer.
Yeah, you could be right or you could be wrong. I'm not saying the answer, but I was like trying to sort of like control my facial expressions. I think
that we're doing a very good job of that in this live in particular. We're being very coy.
I think we're not at all. I think we're just like...
Listen, it's incredibly charming in any case. I think it's great.
After this is over, you can like sit us down and be like, okay, so we need to talk about how that went. And you can just like...
Are we gonna get yelled at, by our producers?
No. I actually think this is amazing, because the fans who are here, the Fireflies who are here, like, this is the kind of thing that I, as a fan, I would watch the last 5 minutes of your conversation over and over and over again, trying to make sense of it all. So I
just say, doesn't make sense on first view.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, my brain is too small to comprehend. It's a tricky. The end of the show is complicated. The macro thing. Stop laughing at me.
Okay.
Oh my god.
This is devolved. Okay, I have a question that I really like, but I don't speak Korean. So it says, what is the movie or musical that Claire asks Oliver he's referring to in The Rainy Day We Met? I always thought it was doing a bungee jump, but I want to know your answer.
Yes,
it is bungee
that's
jump.
right. Our first
They got
show.
it. There's an Easter egg. Yes.
Thanks for catching it. It's very nerdy, I know.
The scene is from Bungee Jump, and yes, that's correct.
Okay, let's see. I had one. Any favorite? So you talked about audience response a bit. Any favorite fan reactions, or have you gotten to meet any of your own like heroes through this process of the show being on Broadway? Any reactions that you were just like, wait, what? Wow.
Well, we were away. I mean, we just got, so again, timing did not work well. The Maybe Happy Ending Broadway production, as you may remember, was delayed by a month, which anyway, the way things ended up working out was we had to leave for Korea the moment it opened. And we really just got back like a couple weeks ago.
So you're seeing all of these celebrity photos of like oh, everyone coming to see the show. Like Neil Patrick Harris is here and Tim Rice and like all these incredible people.
We're sadly not attending. I mean, we were just amazed and thrilled that the show was still happening. It was like surreal. Yeah, we came back and we're like, they're still on stage doing it. It was amazing. But no, we haven't met anyone because we were in Korea.
We'll have to remedy that. We'll have to have like y'all in conversation with, you know, make it happen. It'll be great. Is there anything else? I feel like I've done a best of and we're 1 minute over at the beginning. Okay, sure. This could be our final question. Oh wait, what were you going to say?
Well, no, there was one that we saw in the Reddit.
Oh yeah, please.
We thought was it that we were interested. Remember, you thought the one about he's alone in his room in America, but there's the person said I think mailman, but there's this helperbot employee that delivers the mail in the Korean version. And someone had asked about that, and we thought that actually might be an interesting thing to mention because it was another change that we made that we love that in the American version he's completely cut off. There's no interactions. But there was this sub thread in the Korean version where there's this helperbot employee that's been delivering the mail for 12 years. And Oliver every time like thanks him for his service and tries to show him the jazz magazine. And the guy is probably resentful of robots generally because here he is like working for a robot kind of like tells you something about where they might be class-wise. And so he never talks to him. But finally, after 12 years, when he has to say the parts aren't being delivered anymore, he kind of feels bad. And Oliver is still like, but it's a great picture, right? And the mailman like finally, the helperbot employee finally answers and is like, hey, that is a nice picture. And it's kind of this little moment. And a number of moments like that. For example, the motel clerk had another additional little moment in the Korean version where Oliver, they get to the room and Oliver is like, didn't he seem lonely? He clearly needs help. And Claire's like, it's your programming. I mean, we kind of use that on the ferry scene where he's trying to help everyone, but it was specific to the clerk. So he's like, I guess I'll just leave him a warm note. So in the morning when they're leaving, he like gives him a note and the clerk is like totally confused, but then a little bit touched by it. So we sort of have Oliver like leaving in his wake all of these like isolated humans who are sort of like, who was that? And why was he so sad? And that was like a thing that we did like in the Korean version. But again, you lose something, you gain something. Now he's totally cut off, which is strong in its own way and makes his meeting with Claire more powerful. And we love that. But we thought that was an interesting question and wanted to share that little backstory.
Nerd alert.
Nerdy. Well.
Okay, wait. I have one bonus question, which really I should have asked at the beginning. Where did the idea for this come from?
Oh, well, I've been saying it a lot in interviews. I was sitting in a coffee shop and this song called Everyday Robots by Damon Albarn, the frontman of this British band Blur, which I loved as a kid. So yeah, I started to pay attention to the lyrics, and then it starts with something like, we are everyday robots on our phone in the process of, like getting home. And then when I listened to the lyrics, I was like, oh, I want to write a sort of like intimate love story, but the protagonists are robots. So I just texted and emailed you. And yeah, and then that night we talked, and then we were like, okay, let's write a story out of that concept.
Yeah, it was like, I think the idea, as I remember it, was that we're becoming more like robots, like, talking to our technology. But imagine if the technology itself was moving in the other direction, starting like us, isolated, like Oliver in his room, but then stepping out of the room and into the world and sort of rediscovering the world with childlike eyes that we've sort of forgotten about. And that was kind of the premise, but I loved it. I immediately said yes. I'm proud of that. I knew he was on this. I knew he was a good idea.
Brilliant collaboration. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you both so much for this incredible. No, it was great. It was.
We're ready for your notes. We'll have a note session afterwards.
It was so
a note session.
It was so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Fireflies, thank you all for joining us for this part of our party like it's 2064. Fans, keep leaving your comments down below. We'll, see if we can answer some in time. And yeah, thank you so much, Will and Hugh.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
How do I turn it off?
I don't know.
I turned off the stream.
Okay.
And we're done now. You did great.
Be